Welcome to the XY Advisor Podcast, a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice. To get involved, go to xyadvisor.com or simply download the XY Advisor app.
Accelerating innovation and globalisation trends are disrupting global markets. We are a new generation asset management team that looks beyond traditional public markets to understand how innovation and disruption can benefit everyone. We are uniquely structured to solve the underweight to accelerating global innovation as we transition from Web 2.0 into Web 3.0. Our competitive advantage lies in the integration of our deep asset management and technology expertise under one aligned group to capitalise on the exponential opportunities of Web 3.0. The opportunities are for everyone. Invest different with Holon.
Hello and welcome to XY Podcast. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Kris Mason. Kris is a unique kind of a guy and he comes across quite lackadaisical and you'll really enjoy listening to him. His story is a good one and I have a feeling that he's got more in front of him than what he's got behind him. So Kris Mason, welcome to the XY Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Roxy. Pleasure to be here.
That's all right. And look, as is tradition with XY Podcasts, we want to get our listeners to learn a little bit about yourself. And so the big question is, why did you get into financial advice and where did you come from? Bit of your backstory, mate.
So thanks, Roxy. Country boy, mate, like yourself. So I grew up out in between Wellington and Mudgee, Central West. Came to boarding school at Review in year 6. And I've been essentially in Sydney ever since. How I got into the planning, I was always pretty sporty back in the school days, and I had one of the greatest careers advisors ever, which is a good story. So I must tell it. I remember sitting with her in year 12 at Review. Kris, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm pretty sporty. I think I'll be a PE teacher. And she goes, that's great. And she goes, just out of interest, where do you want to live? And I said, not sure, no brainer. That's where all my mates are. That's where all my school buddies are. And she goes, if you've got kids, what do you want to do education-wise? And I said, of course, boys, I'll go to Review. Girls, Loretto, one of the other private schools, absolute no-brainer. And she goes, well, you won't do that being a PE teacher. I'm just giving you the heads up right now. She said, maybe if you love your sport, why don't you keep playing your sport and get into the business world? So I thought that was very sound advice. And then, so I played a lot of cricket during my school days and ended up with one of my cricket coaches back in my school days said to me, you're a personable guy when you finish up. If you want to have some time off before you study, why don't you come and work for me? And he happened to be a mortgage broker. Field, you know well, Roxy. So anyway, first year out of school, I'm kind of his apprentice mortgage broker guy, trailing him around. And this is where I think I actually learnt a lot of my soft skills probably that stood me in good stead moving forward. I was 18 and a half, and I'm doing the mum and dad mortgage broking appointments at night and all the rest of it. He was a very good broker, but very good salesman as well. So I learned a lot of skills from him over the years. I did mortgage broking for a while, then ended up in a holistic financial planning practice.
And can I ask, where was that at, Kris?
That was at, so the mortgage broking firm was out at Chatswood, Advanced Residential Mortgages, and then... Shout
out Advanced Residential Mortgages. You birthed the failed mortgage broker life insurance icon.
Yeah, so then went across to Taylor Bowring, who was one of the original Shadforce firms, really good financial planning practice. Chris Taylor was the principal there at the time, great guy. They were a holistic one-stop shop. And I set up the in-house mortgage business, swinging off the back of the 7 or 8 planners and property and everything else they did. And while I happened to be there, believe it or not, the guy that was running the in-house insurance happened to die. And the principal came to me and said, Kris, you're doing all the debt work. Debt and insurance goes hand in hand. It's, why don't you have a crack at that? It's pretty easy. I'll get one of the good old BDMs to come out and teach you and all the rest of it. So I started doing dual roles, and then it got to the point where I had to choose one or the other, and I thought, this insurance stuff isn't bad. So that's how I ended up in the insurance stuff as a profession initially. So I kind of more fell into it, which I'm assuming a lot of people did in the insurance space.
And the teacher or the careers advisor, can you remember the person's name?
Mrs. Agnew.
Mrs. Agnew. So if you're listening, Mrs. Agnew, we've got a very wide audience. Kris still has quite a lot of PE teacher shorts that he sports.
That's right. Still a frustrated PE teacher. That's right.
So you've gone from mortgages, and now tell me the the life insurance person literally died, and you then took over those clients straight away. Is that right? Tell me about how that then formed how you thought about this profession.
Yeah, well, I suppose that was a wake-up call, seeing someone, a fellow staff member die as one, and then it validated the value of life insurance advice, and then I got into it from there, and that's pretty well it.
And when did you? So at that stage, you were working in a team.
Yep.
And were you running a team of life insurance writers, or was it specifically yourself? And roughly, for everyone, what year was that?
So that would have been around 2000, I think that would have been, yeah. Yep, or a bit before 98. So I would have been there for 3 or 4 years, and then essentially it got to the point where I brought in some referral sources, so I had some other finance brokers referring insurance to me and a couple of accountants and what have you, and it got to the point with the principle of Taylor Barring where I kind of said I want some equity or I'll go and do this myself.
Classic story.
Yeah, and that we couldn't come to agreeable terms, so then I started up Mason Insurance Consulting from there.
Right, okay. There's a bit of a lesson there, and that same conversation gets had over and over and over again, and maybe towards the end of this I might ask that question of how you now on the other side of the fence, how you're bringing people through in your business, whether it be equity or whatnot.
Yep.
So at that time there, with the life insurance sort of landscape, did you look after? Were you involved with lots of life insurance companies, or did you sort of have a narrow range?
Yeah, I think I would have been using at least 4 or 5 of them. So it was an open architecture model. Yeah, essentially was And I went. So one of the planners, to give you a bit of backstory on that, had just gone out before me, and he'd done the whole dealership thing. And as you said, I can be reasonably relaxed with decisions. I'm thinking, insurance, I don't need a heap out of my dealer group. Not huge amounts of research. I need my risk researcher and all the rest of it for the ratings. So he'd just gone out to Lonsdale, and I thought, he's a very detailed guy, this guy. He's done his homework. If Lonsdale's good for him, I'll get authorised through that. This is when I went out as a one-man band, just operating out of a spare room in my apartment at the time. So I hooked up with Lonsdale, which ended up kind of framing up the direction of the business in some ways. Happy for me to go on? I've gone off on a bit of
No. It's
So Lonsdale was a dealer group that specialised in authorising accountants that wanted to do essentially self-managed super fund advice work or just be authorised, essentially. So I kind of ended up with Lonsdale. Lonsdale essentially came to me and said, we've got all these accounting firms. We've authorised them all, but none of them are really going near the insurance stuff. So they ran the line with all their accounting firms saying, you've got this insurance is an important compliance piece. Your clients need it. You've either got to do it yourself, which is a fair bit to it, or we've got a risk specialist, Kris Mason, that's all he does. Why don't you start referring to him? And that's where I started dealing with, I suppose, B2B stuff with accounting firms, which is really what we've kind of expanded out on.
And I'd like to drill down on that one, because building relationships with accountants is a story that just sort of goes round and round and round. And I liken the way in which you've dealt with accountants over the years to sort of cracking the Rosetta Stone. You somehow speak enough of their language that they're willing to give you that trust and the business that flows. So maybe if you could give our listeners a bit of an idea of how you cracked personally the accountant sort of mindset, and just some tips on how you did that.
Yeah, look, I think with accountants, one thing for us, because we're B2B, our services always had to be top shelf and in line with the accounting firm itself. So one thing, I've always had in the back of my head, if we only have to stuff up one client or do the wrong thing by a client or get sloppy service-wise, then we'll lose that whole account. So I suppose our service has always been of high end from a professional side of things, the reporting back to them, keeping them in the loop, not overselling clients or any of that type of stuff, just having a more accounting structured approach, as I said, with feedback. And I think all our advisors now, as we've grown, know that they don't have to do the wrong thing by one client or muck up the advice, and you've got a whole relationship at stake. So I think that always set us up to be, to have to be really rock solid with our service and, as I said, reporting and what have you back to the accounting firms. And I think accountants deep down, they're managing risk, whether it be business risk, they're talking structures and everything else, so whether it be buy, sells or personal insurance is very much kind of in their wheelhouse.
I think that's a wonderful sort of statement, the fact that they're managing risk, because too many financial planners, I suppose, coming into the conversation with accountants with a bit of prejudice around they're looking backwards, they're not looking forwards. But the reality is, you're right, they're managing risks, and life insurance is another risk that can be hedged for a cost that the accountants sort of control. So as far as the volume of accounting firms, where did you get to, and how did you manage all of these people whilst giving A-class feedback and continuity? How did you do that without sort of dropping the ball as you suggest? Yeah,
well, we've just gradually built it up. We've been at it for 20 odd years now, and we've continued to kind of scale over time. So and I think probably with a lot of businesses in the planning space, you tend to do the B2B work with businesses that are more in line with your scale. So as we were small, it was a lot of 1, 2, 3, 4 partner accounting firms that would be referring work. As we've got bigger, it's moved into the pitcher partners and HLB man judges and stuff like that. And we've always just ensured we've had the scale to do it. And look, accountants don't refer 1 million people overnight either. So generally with the relationships, you've got time to build into them. It takes time to get to know the relevant partners of the firm or the client facing people, and we've always been able to manage that. That's no problem.
And did you find that accountants, like there's quite a broad spectrum of life insurance solutions out there? Was there kind of products or strategies that accountants were just completely blind to, that almost every time you were referred, you went, oh, here's another blind spot?
Look, I think for us it's always, I don't know about blind spots, but a big part of our role once we engage an accounting firm or they speak to us about providing service to their clients is the internal education piece. So we spend a lot of time internally with the accountants and tailor the training to the different areas. I'm a big believer in with any centres of influence or referral sources, that your product has to be interrelated with theirs to a certain degree, because it makes the referral so much more stickier. So with mortgage brokers like the business you're in, Roxy, that debt and insurance goes hand in hand. It's a natural conversation to have. Accountants are always, if they're not dealing, like you look at a pitcher partners, big SME client base, a heap of business advisory accountants. Now, they're not raising buy-sell insurance and all the rest of it when they're talking about managing the risk of that business. In my view, they're not doing their job, and I'm happy to tell them that. Like, you can't be dealing with a $10 million practice with 3 partners. Yes, you might have the trust in place and everything else, but if you haven't tabled the fact that what are you going to do if one of those partners dies, how are you going to do the funding, that's going to be an issue. So we do relevant training. So it might be the planners might be dealing with more personal insurance stuff, what insurance are they losing when they're going down self-managed super funds. So we'll make our internal training very relevant to theirs. We'll then try and overlap that with some marketing to make sure their clients are well aware that this is an additional service offering for the clients. So I suppose our philosophy, Roxy, has always been whatever firm we're dealing with, we want to be a really strong reflection on their service offering, to the point where a lot of our accounting partners or joint venture partners, it's white labelled. So Pitcher Partners Insurance Services is essentially us. So is HLB Man Judd. So it's from their client's perspective, they're going, this is great. This is another kind of interrelated service that my firm can look after for me.
And throughout, from the genesis, you've always been a specialist. So when you made the move into life insurance, did you ever do any overall or holistic planning, sort of superannuation at all, or have you always stayed very narrow focused?
No, we've always been narrow focused, and I'll always kind of maintain that, well, I was probably too stupid to be a planner and get my head around everything. I thought if I can learn the insurance stuff.
We're still recording, Kris.
But it also has been a real string to our bow because we're not competing with any of these firms in other areas. So I think for us, the fact that they can deal with us and there's no conflict, we're not doing anything else that they may be doing on the side as well, because, as you would know, most accounting firms have got a wealth arm. They might have some type of mortgage broking set up in-house or what have you. So it's always helped us, I think.
And when it comes to life insurance more broadly, I know that you get asked a lot of your opinion from the product providers and building it out. And just generally, because there will be some providers listening to this, where do you think they're going right in 2022, and where do you think they're still going wrong as far as what they're offering up?
I think, look, insurers, I think, it's been a bit of a vicious circle for a while with the whole pricing instability and all the rest of it. And we're just seeing now, I think, the birth of more flatter pricing, more sustainable pricing structures, which is I think, the way we need to go. I mean, commissions obviously now, if I drill down into our practice, there's no money in the onboarding of a client. The money is in the recurring income.
So can I just stop you there? So what you're saying is now with LIF having played out,
yep,
and the maximum level that you can take up front being 60%, that's now almost entirely your cost of goods to acquire the client. Is that
correct? Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So by the time we've underwritten a new client and paid the advisor and everything else, it's pretty well break even for us. Yeah. So I think the birth of flatter premium structures, and we've got a few of our own tailored products that we've worked directly with the insurers to make sure, we kind of said we don't want the massive year one discounts and then deal with a client that's dealing with a 30% increase every year. So we've taken that upon ourselves, and obviously we've got good scale so we can have those conversations with the insurers. So I think that's a better result for the client. Clients don't want the kind of bill shock in year 2, 3, 4, 5. They don't want to have to, they don't want to run the risk of having to hopefully be re-underwritten down the track when the market demands that they have to be rebrokered somewhere else. And we, to be honest, don't want to do it as a business either. We'd prefer to be able to set and forget the client at a product level and just make the appropriate adjustments to the client's level of cover as their needs change.
I'd normally like to sort of wait to the end to talk about that, but I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. So you've obviously identified the issue that we all know that as you refer to it, the bill shock is no fun, and if the upfront commissions really is the cost of acquisition, you really want that client to have that policy for as long as is practical and relevant. You've been thinking about this for a while, and have you rolled it out, or is this something you're talking about at the moment?
No, we've just rolled it out, yes.
Congratulations. Can you mention who that's with, or is it confidential?
With the insurer?
Yeah.
So we've done it with Zurich. We've done it, and we've also done some work with MetLife around product as well.
Oh, well done. And I suppose before we go on, there's probably a few people out there, before you jump on the phone to both of those companies, maybe, Kris, if you could just give us an idea of the scale of the business you're in now, and I suppose why those people have done that, just as a headline.
Yeah, so there's a fair bit of work went into it with both product providers in as much as they looked at our book of business, they looked at our lapse rate. So to give you an overview of the book, it's about 100 million premium under management. We've got a better lapse rate than market and all the rest. So our whole kind of thinking around it was we don't really want to play in the pool of all this repricing, which is linked to poorer performing distribution arms, whether that be group or aligned products or other advisors or what have you. We knew the experience of our book was really good, strong, which we thought, if we have a one-on-one with an insurer, get the actuaries to crunch out all the numbers, we could get a much better, longer-term, flatter structure and the pricing based on.
So what you're saying is if you're swimming in a pool, you don't want to be at the shallow end with the blue dye around you.
That's exactly right, yeah.
You want to be at the other end where it's crisp and works for everyone.
Yeah, because we know that the outcome is better. It's a much better book, yeah. Higher premiums, staying on for longer, all the rest of it. So we wanted our clients to get the benefits of that.
Oh, very good. And so that's what you're doing. The question I ask is what are the insurers doing well and what are they doing poorly? And you didn't really answer either of them. You just sort of said, what have we done to make things better?
Yeah.
Where do you still think that they lack, the insurance companies in dealing with advisors? Not necessarily the B2C stuff, which everyone knows about, but where do you think that they could improve?
Look, my personal experience with insurance companies, Roxy, over the years has always been great. We've always had it, we're in business with these guys. We've always worked closely with them. They've been very good to us in a number of ways as we've grown over the years and stuff as well. And I'm a firm believer in business. Everyone's got to make a dollar, so they've got to do well. Their returns have not been great. They've been hammered, but so I think they're doing everything they can. Their biggest issue at the moment is not a lot of distribution in the market. That's their biggest problem, and that's been a result of obviously the Royal Commission and other things have knocked that around. But that will come back.
Yeah, well, people are indebting themselves at record levels. So life insurance has never been more greatly needed with an ageing population.
Yeah, and I think on that previous question as well, I mean, insurers get hammered a lot for discounting products and being unsustainable, but if they don't discount, they don't get the new business, which is driven by the advisors. So I think there's a bit of accountability on both sides there.
Yeah, and I think from what you said, you very much approached them in a partnership kind of model. But you can do that with your scale. But you always did that, even when you didn't have scale. You always took a little bit of extra time dealing with, working with the life insurance companies, listening to them. Whereas, it's very easy to dismiss the life insurance BDM coming out, just another BDM. But I know from memory that you did take a lot of time. You really picked their brains, and very much so you like to ingratiate yourself in that process. Would that be a fair statement? Without doubt. Yeah, we've always seen them as partners. As I said, a lot of the insurers, the likes of TAL and AAA and Zurich have been really good to us as a business over the years. They've helped us in a lot of areas, and we like to think it's a two-way street. We have a good, honest relationship with them, and we work through stuff, and that's the way it should be. There hasn't been enough of it. It's always been advisors against insurers, and that's not a healthy, in my view, largely anyway. That's not a healthy way to run your business, and we're understanding of the issues they've had as well. So maybe having a little bit of a think about the clients. So I'm lucky enough to know you personally, and for a while there, your eldest son, who's now almost an adult, used to say, "I don't know what Dad does, but I think he just gives people money, a bag of money when they need it." So on that, have you got a couple of sort of stories that stick with you from the coalface of clients of when something's really worked or something that was really valuable that you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, I think insurance, it's very easy to sell until, I suppose the penny drops when you get a big claim. I had the work colleague die, and then I actually had one of my first clients. I still remember him. They went out and saw her. He was very senior at Woolworths, so big job, had big debt. All the rest of it was a huge insurance policy. I think it was, and this was going back, this would be 18, 19 years, $6 million life cover, max IP. So this guy got put through the ringer medically, and super fit, ran the house down, was running 20 Ks a day, all the rest of it. And then about 4 months later, he had asbestos cancer and died like 2 months after that. So for me, when you see a big claim, you see the impact on the family, had young kids and all the rest of it. And for a guy that I would never have predicted to have a major health event like that. And that was, I suppose, that's what really validates what we do as insurance advisors without question, yeah. So that was probably one that stuck in mind, and probably fortunately that was really early on in the piece. And I think, I've seen it internally with us. We've got 20 plus brokers at the moment, and some of them probably have never had a serious claim. So until they get that, I think that once they do get that and they see the impact on the family or the business or whatever it is, that's when they'll get a true appreciation for the real value they're bringing, as opposed to issuing a piece of paper that's saying it's going to do something if something goes wrong. Yeah,
so you're completely correct. I mean, the life insurance industry isn't just selling a piece of actuarial instruments. It's what happens when there's a claim, and there are some claims that sadly are easy to validate with a death certificate, but there are other claims that are more interpretive. What is it that you do or your business does on the claims side, and how would you recommend people who are maybe new into life insurance or they don't do it all the time? In fact, the most recent survey is that only 12% of people now call themselves life insurance advisors, which is defined by sort of 40% or more of their revenue. So what is it that you do come claim time, and a couple of tips that you could give people to assist with claims?
Look, I think, again, with claims, and just going back to what we were talking about before, just work closely with the insurers. The insurers, we've had, I think, one claim over a long period of time with a massive book not paid, and that was just blatant non-disclosure. I won't go into those details, but the claims managers, just work with them, and we've found, they'll go out of their way to help you. So that would be my best advice. Would be if you're a bit nervous about it or haven't done much of it, get your BDM to bring the head of claims out and have a chat to them. Make sure you've got their name and number. So if there's ever an issue, jump on the phone. That's, I've never been afraid to reach out in any area of business to get advice or help in any of those areas. And the insurers will bend over backwards with that. We all know they're very well resourced internally. So just ask for help. And don't think that it's you against them at the event of a claim. Most of them will go out of their way to make sure that claim's paid quickly and efficiently as soon as they've got the relevant information. So I certainly wouldn't have any hang-ups over whether they will or won't pay. It's pretty clear-cut in our game whether someone qualifies for a claim or doesn't. So that would be my advice there, mate.
I had a great chat with Dan Blatch a couple of weeks ago, and his advice is very similar, which is, get as close as you can to their assessor team, get them out, train, learn, and at the end of the day, be willing to come to the table and do what it takes to get the claim done for the client. As you say, it's ludicrous to think that the people who are standing between you and a check are the enemy.
Yes.
I think the sooner you work with them, the better. Now, when you, because you are a life insurance sort of specialist team, and if I look at the fascia, it's very much, you had to learn everything. How has that impacted you guys the last couple of years, given that you've probably never rolled a superannuation over or done any of those sorts of things? And did you find it frustrating, or is it just another thing to keep rolling the arm over?
I think there was an element of frustration that, of course, when when they want you to do study that, and this puts it in perspective. Well, Roxy, as you know, I'm married to a cardiologist doctor, and I remember coming home one night whinging that, can you believe it? I've got to do all this additional study, of which I've never done a lot in the past. I've got to do 6 or 7 subjects, and she goes, "Are you bloody kidding? All I deal with now is hearts. You know how much study I had to do before I got to that in the general medicine? I had to get me across everything." So it was like, dry your eyes and get on with it. I thought, geez, that's not a bad wake up call. So, look, we've always, I think, and I think this is where a lot of business went wrong. Royal Commission for us was, it was a line in the sand. We had to make changes. And for us, we accepted it and just got on with it. And I think, to be honest, and Senator Hume and stuff would love to hear this. Probably we're a better business for it. We didn't sit there whinging, throwing stones, sitting in neutral. We thought, okay, there's a couple of areas that we're going to have to improve on, a couple of changes have to be made, and we just got on with it. And we were surging. I like to say we're like the salmon. We've been swimming against the stream the last 4 or 5 years. You've had distribution going backwards, and we've been going forwards at a rapid rate of knots. So we haven't we've got a pretty good, it's a youngish business as well. So it was more just, it is what it is. Let's just get on with it. Let's control the controllables. It's been a big mantra for us. And I think that's the industry, as you would know, has suffered massively from people just bitching and moaning for years about all this change, a lot of which I think was probably warranted. If I look at the industry now, it's a better industry than it was probably prior to the changes. I don't necessarily agree with a heap of people having to get out because they can't get the study done, but I think it will come through this and come out the other side.
Look, I just got a double thumbs up emoji from James Hume as you were talking, Kris, which is probably one of the more pleasant text messages in Canberra for the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
So what you mentioned, when I asked for an example, you mentioned a $6 million. What's been the largest payout that you've been involved in?
Not that much higher than that. I think we had about a $9 million individual case was the highest one we paid out. And
I know that you're a big advocate of trauma insurance and making sure that's working. Is there so with the future of trauma insurance and being married to a cardiologist, it's one of the big four reasons why trauma is there. But there's all these other facets of with mental health and whatnot. Where do you see the products moving towards?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, they've obviously just watered down income protection a bit. They've made that, if you look at the detail, pretty difficult for self-employed people around justifying income or what have you. So I'm a massive trauma advocate, and that's largely based on we pay out more in trauma claims than anything else by a fair way. So I'm seeing payouts all the time and meaningful payouts. People are getting decent chunks of money for serious illness as opposed to, I think in the modern day, people get back on their feet pretty quickly as well. You have something serious, you're stented or it's keyhole, and if you're getting through a 90-day wait on your income protection, these days you're pretty crook. But it's just a balance, and it's a case by case subject. I think self-employed people or whatever, to me, trauma is probably the best way to go. Income protection is obviously important for the PAYE people and whatever, but it's always, like as I said, case by case, and it's just balancing out the right portfolio for the individuals or the business or whatever it is.
So you've now got, you mentioned earlier that you've surrounded yourself with capable people. I think that's a common theme. But you also mentioned you grew up in the country. Did you go to a big school or was it small? And were you ducks of that school? And do I know the answer already?
Yes, I was, correct.
And how many people were in your form?
One other in my year at Spices Creek Public School.
Okay. So I just wanted to get that question on the record. Running a business and sort of getting to the scale you're at, technology must play a part. You were very firm on the reason why accountants dealt with you and partners dealt with you was that you gave good feedback and that you kept them involved. Maybe what have you used in order to give feedback, specifically for B2B, because that's sort of your superpower? Yeah. And where do you see that going? And what are you guys doing currently?
So we're with Salesforce at the moment is our CRM. VPP is our back office, which you know very well. They help us offshore, and we've got a very good internal team. I mean, I think for us, there's been no magic wands on the IT stuff yet. That's getting worked on through Bombora, the dealer group at the moment, and then just good people is the key, and using obviously resources like offshore and what have you as well. But yeah, one of the keys to MBS doing well is the calibre of people we've got in there.
And maybe take me through. Look, I wholeheartedly agree. If you get people, then strategy, then execution, and cash comes. So, take me through how you've come to build MBS and the key people in it. And when I Google MBS, I always get all the articles come about which are fundamentally this inflection point around 2015-16 where you made some decisions. So maybe take me through the team and how you built them, and maybe how you build your life insurance. Do you have pods? Are they state-based? Or just give us a feel for how you're managing that, because that's unique in our industry.
Yeah. It's a big question, Roxy, but I'll try and break it down. So, yeah, I mean, MBS, it was myself initially, then I had a couple of guys work for me, and I suppose back to right at the start of this chat, we were talking about me not being able to get equity in the firm I was with before. I never wanted to make that mistake. I was happy to be a smaller part of a bigger pie. So I've always, to this day, continuing to lock in good people with equity, because life insurance is a big equity-based business as well. So I think if you're half clued up in life insurance and you don't want a piece of the underlying value, there's probably a bit of a issue there, because that's where a lot of the value sits. But so we've always had some good people, really good people involved. We've got, Drew Burden, who is one of, he's the kind of major shareholder with myself. Him and I are very different, which has been a great part of the business. He's the analytical, detailed one. So yeah, we work really well together on that.
If you listen carefully, that's him laughing at the moment, by the way.
And then, Chris McKenzie, Brent. So we've had kind of an initial crew, and we've built on that. So we brought in Carolyn Clark, who's a really strong general manager. Our CFO's just become an equity holder. So we've just added people. We've never been afraid to get, pay people good money to get them in the business. So reinvestment's been a huge part of our success. I wasn't ripping big money out of the business for a long time. Everything was largely going back into it. And I think for me, that was one of the benefits of starting young, was I didn't have 3 kids at private school and all the income demands that I might have today. So it was great being able to start it running pretty lean out of a spare bedroom in a place and just build it from there. But adding good people is key. There's no way I'd be even close to where we are now if I didn't have some of those key people involved in the business.
And take me through, you're holding out on the bringing them in as equity holders. If I'm starting with you and I'm aspirational, and how does that journey look for me? Is it a time-based thing? Is it sort of a merit, or what's your process for bringing people through?
Yeah, look, we've never had any real set formula. It's just, I think, as a business owner, mate, you know when someone's is too invaluable. So we've always, doesn't matter whether they've been there a year or 5 years or what have you, if we need to have that conversation, we have it, yeah.
Awesome. So the other facet that you mentioned about you, at the stage you didn't have 3 kids in private. You got 3 kids now. How do you balance looking after a firm, looking after the acquisitions, and also sort of your family and your health? What do you do to unwind?
Well, I do plenty to unwind. If you speak to my business partners, I'm sure they would attest to. But look, I love sports. I still play touch football, still play golf, still play cricket. So I do a lot of that stuff. I mean, yeah, it's a big business, but I've got really good people in key areas. So really good general manager that looks after all the staff. My role, if anything, I think as we get bigger, in some ways gets easier because you've got good people doing a lot of the stuff that you're used to that are probably a lot better than I ever was at it. I can focus on the the M&A part of the business or the new joint ventures coming up, which is an area that I've always done a lot of and good at, and it's great really. The business, the growth has been manageable growth, still got a good work-life balance, no problems there, so it's no dramas at all.
And do you when I think about particularly you've been all B2B, does your business when you get direct clients in, do you get direct clients in who come directly?
Yeah, we have plenty of direct clients, I think, and I need Drew here to answer a lot of these detailed questions, but I would say probably 20% of our clients are direct, which would be friends, family, referred from existing clients. Yeah, so we still do a lot of that. I mean, I suppose the core of the business has always been the B2B stuff, but yeah, we still do a lot of direct client work as well, and especially currently, I think at the moment, one thing that I'm well aware of that I speak to a lot of our referrers about to kind of get them revved up to refer more clients is access to advice is hard. We know it's a big issue at the moment. No one's giving insurance advice. The bank used to go to the bank and you'd get it or what have you. Now that doesn't exist. So
what are they getting?
Don't assume that people can get access to an insurance specialist to give them some advice on what they've got or what they haven't got. So we speak to our referrers a lot about that. It's not, getting good advice, and I think planning's probably the same, is not easy now. So I know that's on the top of the government's list at the moment, is how are they going to increase access to advice. So I think that's just a good point to make with, as I said, with all our referrers, don't think your clients have got this stuff covered off on elsewhere. It wouldn't be getting covered off on. So
if I'm a practitioner out there and I'm looking at life insurance, one of the big issues I've got is around that profitability, especially initially. So in your sort of estimate, and by the way, Drew isn't here, so but in your estimate, how long does it take you, do you think, to engage with personal advice of a client, take down their details, go through the right process and develop sort of a meaningful strategy?
The insurance, it can be pretty quick. I mean, in our business, I suppose, where it's B2B, whether it be dealing with a mortgage broker or a planner, we're coming in with a fair bit of, you've got a fact find that's probably 3/4 of the way done. You know a lot of the information. So the insurance piece isn't massively complicated, getting your head around how to advise the levels of cover and that type of stuff. And a lot of that's based on the client's risk appetite and what have you, really guiding them through that process. But our whole model, and like what we're seeing with a lot of the other planning groups, is all about, how do you get more efficient? How do you get quicker? So for us, it's what can we take away that the planners are doing that's just, mundane work that's preventing them seeing the next client. So our advisors, I think, one of the parts that they love about MBS is they're doing the pointy end stuff. They're doing the client stuff. They're doing the fact find. They're doing the strategy, and that's about it. It then gets handed off to the administration team, which runs with the rest of it. And we're seeing a lot of that with our B2B planning groups that are all about, Kris, this is why we don't want to do the insurance, because we want Roxy, the financial planner, not to have a capacity of 150 clients a year of 250. And if he's doing any of this peripheral work, it's not going to work. And so it's all about having a pretty streamlined cut-through system that gets from A to B pretty quickly. And that's what, I suppose that's the beauty of specialisation. We can have a full focus on making sure that the insurance piece is covered off, obviously comprehensively, compliance ticked off and everything else, but making sure that the advisors aren't, if you're risky doing your own SOAs and all that type of stuff, you're costing yourself, a lot of time that you could be seeing the next client and getting someone else to do it.
Absolutely. And I wanted to also, you've gone into the operations and whatnot, but there is still a role for soft skills when you're interacting with the client, regardless of how much information you get. And how does MBS sort of roll out their soft skills training, or what advice would you give people who are listening to this whether it be, books or programs, or what's your advice on how to learn the soft skills to master life insurance?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good, that's a very good question. There's probably not enough of it around these days, but I think where being B2B is a bit easier, probably for our advisors, because they're coming from a trusted source. Normally, if their accountant has told them they need to get their insurance looked at, or they've just geared up on debt and what have you. But internally for us, we have kind of two strands. We'll either have advisors coming through the business who will spend time with myself or Drew or one of our other business partners, Kris Mason. He's kind of head of advice, so he runs all the advisors. So he'll do work on that. They'll sit in on appointments and all the rest of it, see the way we speak about or advise the clients in the meetings and what have you. So we still do plenty of work in that, because it still is it's a relationship and trust business, albeit, as I said, in a B2B business, I think you're 4 steps ahead of everyone else, because the trust element is already there when the accountant they've dealt with for 20 years says you need to speak to these guys to get your insurance sorted out. We've dealt with them for a long time. They're very good. So that certainly helps.
And I must ask, every time you hear about people entering into a referral arrangement, whether it be accountants or whatnot, do you find that you do the life insurance advice with that referring partner at all, or early in the piece, or is it a prerequisite for them to give you good, or does it not matter? I'd really love to hear what your answer
to do their own work.
Yeah, because quite often people go, if you get theirs, then they'll understand it. But I'm not sold on that. But you tell me.
Yeah, so it'd be a combination with us. A lot originally with the smaller accounting firms, what have you. Yeah, we'd always do the buy, sell, and that type of stuff, so they get to see what we do initially, and the business stuff generally rolls into the personal stuff anyway. So we're doing that. Now it's probably we just make sure we go out of our way, and I think this is really important. We're always onto our brokers about it. If you get a good result for a client, you make sure you articulate that back to that referring accountant or referring planner. So if that accountant's referred you a client paying 20 and the market rate's 13, and you save them a heap of money and add some policies that they may not have had or whatever. So we're big on our advisors articulating that, because I think no.
So that's almost like a bit of a health check on your life insurance. Is that part of your offering?
Yep.
Okay. And that's kind of a part of, I suppose, adding value to those.
So we've done a few things like with a couple of accounting firms where they've said to their clients, we've got this new insurance division. We're doing compulsory insurance audits on all our clients. So our advisor is going to have a look at what you've got. It's all obligation free. He's going to make comment around the strength of the product, the pricing, anything else from that you may be missing or what have you. And they use their own language, accountants, audits, and that was that's been a massive success for us. So The way of extracting work is kind of the other art of the game, with accountants constantly working with them to making sure you're getting access to enough clients to do the work with. And as I said, that's training, that's marketing, that's putting stuff in newsletters, that's talking about the volatility of the market and the need for reviews, and all the importance of having trauma cover and things like that, where you just keep chipping away at their client bases to make sure the work's coming out.
Now, you mentioned that you've dealt with a lot of accountants, and I did know that, but a quick glance at your website, there's an increasing trend, and maybe you can give us a bit of a feel for what you're doing now, where you're actually forming part of the financial planning offering of financial planning businesses, not just accounting firms.
Yes.
When did that start, and how have you made that work without, I suppose, compromising the importance of the financial planner? Maybe take us through that journey the last couple of years.
Yeah, so I suppose that probably really started taking off for us. The accounting was obviously generally the kind of the mainstay, I suppose, or the main B2B partner. And then the Royal Commission brought in a bit of a flood of work for us around. So we had we took over or bought the JB Weir's insurance business off them. So they had a couple of internal brokers, pretty big book. And a lot of advice groups post Royal Commission were found have kind of scoped their offering to, okay, how are we going to really tidy up? Might have been a compliance play, could have been whatever, where, okay, we want to focus on the wealth, but we're not going to do any of the peripheral stuff. There's too much liability there. We're only kind of half doing it. The brokers sweeping under, the advisors, are sweeping under, they're doing bits and pieces of it, but they're not doing it properly, and they actually don't want to do it. Most advisors have got especially with the IP changes and premium volatility, they had a lot of clients coming back to them. So that kind of initiated a heap of flow, or big flow of work to us, where you had a lot of big groups saying, okay, we've got this wealth business that we're going to keep building that. The full focus is around tech, and everything else is going to be for the wealth. We've got, an example, $10 million worth of insurance premium sitting over here. We're not really that active on it. We don't want to get caught up in fees for no service. Can you guys just come in and provide that service for us? Take over the book or buy the book, and we'll give you all our ongoing work. And in most cases, they'd mandate that, okay, we're no longer offering insurance advice. The insurance advice is referred on to MBS or what, it could be a white label entity or whatever. So that, I think the specialisation piece has certainly got bigger and bigger over the last 4 or 5 years, because it was an easy tidy up for a lot of firms to go, okay, well, doing bits and pieces of stuff and not doing it properly is not going to cut the mustard now. So how do we tidy up our different areas? And that was one of the ones, was we either do it properly or we don't do it. And a lot of them have chosen not to on the insurance side, especially the bigger wealth mob. So we've got some big wealth groups that we're in business with, and some pretty big ones that we're in discussions with at the moment as well. So that's a kind of big area for us.
And look, it's intelligent for them, because financial planning is as much about risk management as anything, especially if you're self-licensed in particular, or any, in fact, all licenses. The risk is somewhere. Are you geographic, or have you got where are you, those wealth firms, for instance, that you've recently been involved with?
Well, yeah, so obviously the bigger the firm, often in multiple states. So we've got offices in Sydney, big one in Melbourne, big one in Perth, small one in Brisbane. So we're pretty well got it fundamentally covered, yeah. So and our, I suppose, office expansion has just been in line with where we've had to be due to, I mentioned JB Weir earlier. They've obviously got clients in Melbourne, Perth, Brisbane that they wanted service as part of the arrangement we came up with. So we had to make sure we had a presence there. So
in tandem with sort of the partnership model, and you've mentioned you bought books of business, and there's lots of people sort of listening to this who have either bought a business or not. Maybe give us an idea of, when you look to purchase a piece of business, what are you looking for? And maybe have you got a preferred lender that you can talk about? Or, because we do get those questions, just to give us a feel for it.
Yeah, so lending-wise, Macquarie have always done our lending work, and if we're looking at acquisitions, or often the acquisitions are part of a joint venture arrangement, it's always our ultimate kind of acquisition is an acquisition that comes with ongoing distribution. So
the going concern. So a lot of people buy books, right? And you're not doing that.
We want books, and we want the consistent work, yeah. So I suppose one of the more recent ones we did was Capital Partners in WA. Serena West was one of the equity holders there, really good insurance specialist. So she's come across with us as an equity holder as part of the transaction. But that was, I think from memory, $7 or $8 million worth of premium under management, and a really strong wealth firm that will continue to refer. So you get the existing book, but then you've got 15 odd planners that will then refer all their work to us moving forward. So you nearly get the best of both worlds. You get a book, but then you get a heap of ongoing work. And that's same with JB, where we bought their book, and they've been mandated to refer their insurance work to us moving forward. So that for us is nearly the ultimate. I mean, we'll still look at standalone books if at the right price and what have you, but certainly if you can get acquisitions that come with distribution, I think that's ideal. And
do you engage the lender early on, or is it sort of something you've done that many of them, it's an understanding?
I know we'd engage them pretty early on, yeah, and they'd have a good look at it. So our CFO does all the work with Macquarie, so he'll sort that out. So, but yeah, definitely they're 100% across what we're doing, given they've done a fair bit with us as well. So, yeah.
Yet again, a classic case if you've outsourced that job, Kris. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's right.
It only cost you a bit of equity and not having to do with the numbers. So,
yeah.
So well done. It's there's kids out there. This is a very interesting sort of case study. It's quite transferable. You surround yourself with people and empower them. What kind of a leader would you describe yourself? What's your leadership style?
Look, I'm a reasonably relaxed type of guy, but Drew and I are also very competitive as well. So we're hungry. We want, if there's business out there to be done and we can progress the business, we'll go hard at it. So, sometimes it's a bit of an issue for me where I think everyone thinks he's super relaxed, but I still want people. I get a kick out of seeing people progress themselves. I dislike people sitting in neutral for too long. I'm a big believer that if people are moving forward in their lives, they're going to be happy. So I want to help create that environment. And you get the naturally hungry people that are always looking to go. One of my business partners, Kris Mason, he's been happy. He's been hungry from day one. If he does this year, he wants to do this the next year. So you don't need to motivate guys like that. They're on the go and they want to progress. And other people sometimes just need some encouragement. So that's one of the roles that I play in the business at the moment, is trying to get. It doesn't matter what area of the business you're in. I'm trying to push people to the next level, because, as I said, I've got a very relaxed demeanour, but I'm also very competitive as well, and I've got big ambitions for the business. So that's my management style. We've got our GM's pretty, she keeps people between the lines. They've got a role to do. They've got to do it. So we've got different styles, I suppose, internally, but I think that's a good thing. But
and it's interesting to say you've got $100 million of life insurance in your practice, which, to the best of my knowledge, is not institutionally owned or private equity, which is just 100% the employees.
Correct, yep.
And you're still saying that you've got a lot of ambition. Where do you see the business in sort of 3 to 5 years? We've only come back late last week. We had 2 or 3 days off site to reset all the plans and budget. So we want to get to 400 to 500 million premium under management in the next 3 or 4 years, which is and obviously we've got an EBIT number we're targeting as well. But I suppose we just sense there's a lot of opportunity, Roxy, at the moment. Like, the market's in a bit of distribution's in upheaval a bit at the moment. A lot of players getting out of it, specialisation becoming more prominent. We know we're in a really strong position at the moment. We've got a big scale business. We've got really good resources. We've got system and process. So we know we're in a position that if a bank wants out of their insurance business, which they'll have, we can step up there and do that type of stuff. So I think it's make hay while the sun shines a bit at the moment, because I believe it'll kind of calm down again probably in 4 or 5 years. But at the moment, there's a lot of opportunity around, and we'll continue to push pretty hard at the moment when stuff comes up. And I think the one good thing that we've had going for, we get referred into a lot of stuff. We've done a good job with relationships, and then the word gets around. Macquarie Bank have been great for us. They tip us into Jamie Melville at Macquarie's always on the phone to Drew and I saying, "I've got this firm you got to speak to. I've got this firm." So you in this, I think in our industry and planning, if you do the right thing, or mortgages or whatever it is, the word will get out there, and there'll be plenty. And that's the most powerful referral you're going to get when you're getting tipped into those type of things. Well, I get a feel, and I do know that your business, that there's a culture of winning and there's a culture of success, right? And it's almost that winning and success is par in your business. To steal a golf phrase, which you're mad for golf, which but if I'm an XY person listening to you, it sounds like I've got some options. If I've got are you still taking sort of small to medium sized business referrals, or is it all now big partnerships? Or explain to me.
We're happy to look at anything. Whether it be a smaller boutique planning practice that wants to refer work out and strike up a relationship, no problems. If it's a corporate or a bank or whatever, we'll have that conversation as well. Because it's all good insurance work at the end of the day, and as long as we can keep up the internal resources, which we've had no problems to date, we'll certainly look at it.
And what about talent? What about people employed to do the thing that, sounds like the executive has got numerous opportunities in the business. How do you continually attract and retain those mid-ranked people that really drive the business?
It's just one of those things that I think, often we will get good people with a transaction like a Serena West. So, you're buying a pretty good sized business over there, but you're getting the planner that comes with it and a couple of the support staff that just kind of fold into our administration team, which is great. So that's, often, and with JB Weir, they had 2 internal risk advisors that came across with us. So often you can pick up the resources with it. We've got a pretty good REM structure for all our advisors that allows them, really to kind of build a business within the business and keep building their revenue streams.
Maybe stop you on that. So what that insinuates is that they're getting a share, like a short-term incentive on retention, not just acquisition. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Correct. Yep. And the more we acquire, the more they get the opportunity to manage, which their REM's pinned to that as well. So I suppose I think in any growing business, as exciting it is at the top, it's pretty exciting for people at the bottom because there's a lot of growth. There's opportunity, if you're an advisor, to get a lot more work or manage more clients. If you're part of a growing back office administration team, there's positions popping up there all the time. So I think everyone loves being part of a business that's on the move. So that's probably been one thing that's been easy enough for us, and we've had our staff retention and stuff is very good.
One of the things at XY is we wanted to celebrate the positive evolution of financial advice, and after nearly half a decade or even a decade of being beaten up, especially around leaf and life insurance, it's quite refreshing to talk about businesses on the up in life insurance, businesses that are confident about the future, businesses that view the life insurance as business partners, which can only help the clients and the general public. And I'd like to take the time, Kris, to thank you and vicariously thank the team behind you that make your day easier than what otherwise it would be. And for those listening, if you want to reach out or get in touch, there'll be links attached to this, and obviously mbsinsurance.com.au is a great destination on behalf of XY. Thanks very much for your time, Kris, and maybe the next 20 years be as good as the last 20. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Matt.